So I woke up at 5. As the days went by, I realized that despite getting around 8 hours of sleep, 7 to 8 hours of sleep, I would still not be feeling very fresh during the day. To counter that, I started taking mini naps during the day. These mini naps entailed me just lying down in bed, closing my eyes and resting for around 10 minutes and then just getting up. I also avoided participating in social gatherings which were later at night with friends and stuff, which wasn't always the easiest, but I used to feel like it's better than not getting enough sleep. But it was true that things were not exactly as enjoyable as I wanted them to be. Although I was doing things that I enjoyed doing during the day, by the end of the day, I didn't feel like, wow, that was a good day that I just lived. And so I thought that perhaps things need some tweaking in the way that I'm approaching making a day enjoyable. And this is around when I entertained the idea of doing a dopamine detox. Basically what that is that you bring your threshold of enjoyment lower, and that would cause some changes in your body. There's a biological explanation behind this, and that once your baseline pleasure is lower, other things like work, journaling, reading books, things which aren't as enjoyable as playing video games and watching YouTube, they will begin to feel more enjoyable. So this dopamine detox would entail me cutting off there's a hormone called dopamine releasing activities, which include watching YouTube, browsing through social media, playing video games, and even watching movies and stuff. So I cut off these things out of it. I only kept things which I thought would be better for me to keep, and these included playing the guitar, listening to music, and reading books, or journaling, cycling, working out, whatever else I wanted to do. Another thing which I kept in, which was dopamine inducing, was just hanging out with family and friends. So I cut off things that I did not want to derive pleasure from, and I put in things that I thought it would be better for me to derive pleasure from. Whenever I would feel bored or whatever and feel like playing a video game or watching YouTube, I would think that, either I do nothing, or I can read a book to pass time, or I can play the guitar to pass time. And in my experience, this actually made me happier. There was a kind of, I'm not sure what the word is here, but I'm going to use the word contentment with the moment. If I just thought that it's like by limiting my options, things became simpler, and that kind of made me feel better. Generally speaking, overall, that's how I felt. So one intention that I had from the beginning, which was to induce positive emotion by doing things which give me pleasure, that failed, and instead this dopamine detox, it kind of helped. Another thing which failed during the challenge, which was my sleep routine. So no matter how many days passed, when I woke up at 5, it was almost always because of the alarm. It wasn't like, okay, I've slept enough, now I'm refreshed, now let's go out, It was never like that. So I wondered, what exactly is wrong here? And I remembered learning somewhere that you feel refreshed when you end up waking at the end of your sleep cycle. So I went on Google, I did some searches, and ultimately that meant that I need to sleep at around 9 hours or 7.5 hours. So I implemented that. I ended up sleeping for 7.5 hours, I think, all of the days. whether it was placebo or the pressure of the approaching deadline, I did end up waking up at 5 a.m. feeling more fresh. So that's how that went. In addition to that, what also failed was the 4-hour routine itself. When I came near 20th of June, around 4.5 submissions still remained, and I did not have enough days. I had 5 days at that point, and things were not looking good. I realized that, and I thought that, and in looking back at how long it took me to finish my earlier assignments, I deduced that it might just be enough for me to go from 4 hours to 8 hours, and then there may be hope for me to finish by the deadline. Around this time, my deadline was also extended. Now I could also finish by the 1st of July, so I had around 5 more days to finish. During this time, I was going full throttle. There was a constant discomfort throughout my day about the fact that the deadline is fast approaching. But what this also helped me with was making me focused on the present day. My main target was to just get through the day. And that kind of a focus on the day also made me feel satisfied. Like I was making progress every day. I was meeting those 8 hours. My focus on the present day also made me less worried about other things in my life, about the future or the past. And I felt a kind of meaningfulness, I felt kind of good, which is surprising because you don't associate long hours of work with feeling good. You associate long hours of relaxation to restore you. Through the challenge, there were a lot of assignments. Before I started, I was like, I don't want to do that. In fact, I even named my folders in which I kept the files for those assignments, like economics and But what I also realized was that as I started a project and I worked on it from day to day to day, it seemed to become a more defined kind of a problem, Before you look at the submission and it's just, economics and it could be a lot of things, and maybe you assume it to be the worst that it can be, and that is daunting. But as time went by, as you made progress from one answer to another, you became more willing to invest effort in that project, because not only was it now a defined problem, you had made progress in it. And as hours went by, and eventually days went by, I tended to become more involved in it. And that dread of it kind of came down. That was the trend that I noticed, which I didn't expect in the beginning.
Okay, so another thing which failed, which I was not even aware of in the beginning of the challenge, was what I expected my social environment to be like when I'm going through this challenge. Basically, what I thought was that in their eyes, I would be considered to be someone better. Impliedly, I just thought that. But I had a reality check around the ending of the challenge. When I was putting in the 8 hours, there was someone who I was having a conversation with, about my sleep routine, things like that. And it came up that they believed that I was being inflexible in this routine. And in that moment, I admit that I did not respond according to what I truly thought about that. But later on, as I thought more and more, I felt angry, I felt irritated and angry that this stuff that I'm doing, at least to me, it's not very easy. But on top of that, my social peer is kind of making an accusation about me as being inflexible. And instead of supporting me, they wanted me to relax in my rigidity with the challenge. And even the context in which they were saying this, it did not seem justified to me to call me as being inflexible. I do understand that flexibility definitely has a place in life. You can't just keep prioritizing work and keep working all the time. But I'm being accused of being inflexible when my final exams are only a matter of days away? I mean, what are you talking about? I expected that people would be more supportive, more helpful in that kind of context. But instead, I was accused. I thought discipline was, to a large extent perhaps, a virtue. But here I was, defending myself against it, which in the end actually also made me think that my family, they've been so supportive throughout all of this. They are the main people who faced the brunt of me not being social, or me being irritated because, or being fatigued by this challenge, by this routine, and not having meals with them. But despite that, not only did they support me, they also tried to make things easier for me, And I am sincerely very grateful for that interaction. It really made me think that I might be taking the support from my family for granted. That is quite amazing. I have a pretty good home environment, and I was made aware of another aspect of its goodness as a consequence of that interaction.
As I have said, throughout the day, I used to record status updates, 2 to 3. This talking to the camera, relaying my thoughts, it was advantageous to me being able to stick to the routine. Because, first of all, it made me feel like I was being listened to. I could just lay off whatever I was feeling, whatever I was thinking, just lay out my frustrations and my struggles to the camera and feel like I've been listened to. And by the end of it, feel a little bit better. But additionally, it also made me hear about what all was going on in a more articulate way, It was things like struggles were not just a general feeling. That feeling that struggle was described into words. I was actually explaining what exactly I was feeling, what exactly is bothering me, what exactly is it that I don't like about whatever I am talking about. And that articulation, organized thoughts in my head, helped me understand what I was experiencing better. So to that extent, the journaling and especially the status updates, because they were so low effort, they helped me in these respects, which was great, and it helped me in sticking to the habits.